Okay, so welcome to our fourth discussion. We should discuss Act 4, and really as much as we can ahead into Act 5 so that next week we can draw across the whole play. I thought I might just say 5 words about tyranny, just because the word tyrant becomes quite dense in Act 4, and yeah, I'll just briefly summarise the way Aristotle describes tyranny. So he says you can divide regimes in 2 ways. 1, number, 2, quality. So number, 1 person rules, or a few people rule, or the many rule. If it's a good, and then quality. If it's a good regime, he says, we call it by convention. I'll come back to this key term in a minute. By convention, monarchy. If a few people rule, and it's a good regime, aristocracy, which means literally rule of the best. Monarchy just means rule of one, monos. And if it's the many ruling, then we call it democracy. The demos rules, the people rule. But he doesn't call that the good version. So that he uses the word regime. So we don't know what to do with that for the moment. Let's just say republic. So if one rules and it's good, monarchy. If a few rule and it's good, aristocracy. If many rule and it's good, let's say a republic. Because the term republic implies that there is a common good, res publica, right? And his criterion for good and bad is whether or not the regime aims at the common good. If they don't aim at the common good, then the rule of one is a tyranny, which is the worst kind of regime, usually. And if it's a few, oligarchy, the rule of the few. And if it's the many who rule, then it's the rule of the demos, the people, or the mob, or democracy, demokratia. Now, I mention this because that's the classical understanding of regimes in which there is such a thing as tyranny. There is no such classification of regimes in modern political thought because the whole emphasis of what is legitimate and illegitimate changes from the end at which the regime aims, which is the common good. And the common good, by the common good, Aristotle means make the citizens happy and excellent. Right? Now, if we don't have a positive view of what's happy or excellent, then it's whether or not the natural rights of the citizens are upheld, in which case you might have some kind of republic or a democracy or a monarchy, doesn't matter, right? Or you don't, and then you've got some kind of illegitimate regime. That's a whole complicated story, but I wanted to raise that very briefly because our understanding of what is an authoritarian regime as opposed to a legitimate one is radically different. And for us, it's not dependent upon whether or not the regime makes people better, because we don't think you can make people better. People should be free to choose. Right? Okay. Now, I mentioned that in this, I thought I might very briefly read something from Hobbes, but it might be taking it a bit too far away. But I'll read 3 lines. So the first one is from the it's the first line of in Leviathan in Book 1. Where is it? Chapter 9. No, that's not what I want. Okay, there is a famous passage which we've read before, so I don't want to read it this year, so I don't want to read it again, which is that, there is no such happiness as the old moral philosophers like Aristotle used to speak of, that life is just the endless search for power after power that ceases only in death. And so why is that so? Well, one example is, he says, and I bring this up because the word security is used at the end of Act 3 in a very key moment, which we'll return to in a moment. But he says, fear of oppression disposeth a man to anticipate or seek aid by society, for there is no other way by which a man can secure his life and liberty. There's no positive end, it's just freedom as an end in itself, for which you need power. Okay, that's... yeah, I hope that will become helpful when we get to tyranny, and the reason is as follows. So Aristotle is saying that by nature there's a criterion for a tyrannous and a legitimate regime, and that criterion has to do with what the regime aims at. Now, Aristotle himself insists that there can be no regime that is founded and ruled by nature. That makes no sense. They have to be ruled by law or convention. So that means you're always going to have a more or less just regime. There'll be no simply just regime, because it'll be ruled by opinions that are more or less adequate to what is the genuine common good. And that means, and he uses this metaphor when he describes a change of regimes, a revolution from one to another, that it's like when the chorus walks one way and then changes direction and sings in a different meter and walks the other way. Strophe, antistrophe, right? And so what he means is that in every regime, we adopt the ways of that regime, like masks and clothing, and that metaphor of clothing is always being used constantly in Macbeth, about we put on the clothing of our rank and our position, or this clothing sits uneasily on Macbeth, and so on. Okay, we'll come back to that, but just before we get into Act 4, in Act 3, at the very end, when we had the witches, and Deborah and I are vehemently disagreeing about the character of the witches, and because
Well, I've had real life experience.
Yes, the witches have attacked you.
Enlighteners.
And so I'm going to put up the Folger text, and this is page 111 of the Folger. This is Act 3, Scene 5, and I'll get the line number as soon as I get the text up here. Where are we? Sorry, I just have to manipulate 8 things. So this is the passage where the 3 sisters, who I'm thinking are not witches. Other people call them witches. They don't call themselves witches, and we'll have some more evidence of this in Scene 1 of Act 4 in a minute. So Act 3, Scene 5, where Hecate, or Hecate, pronounced both ways by Shakespeare, attacks them on the one hand for, quote, trading and trafficking with Macbeth, right? And what's worse, leaving out Hecate, all you have done, and what's worse, and this is at line 10 to 12, and which is worse, all you have done hath been but for a wayward son, spiteful and wrathful, who, as others do, loves for his own ends, not for you. As if Hecate is accusing them of thinking that some people act with gratitude, whereas she's teaching, the Machiavellian thought that people never act on gratitude. You can only expect people to act upon their future benefits, so you have to hold power over them or something. You have to be able to provide benefits for them in the future. And that makes the weird sisters odd. If they can't be a source of evil, and there's nothing sort of satanic about them, I think. Later on, there's a character called Seyton, which you pronounce Satan, right? So Macbeth gets to say a few things to Satan directly. We'll get to that in Act 5, right? But they're very un-Satan-like. They're kind of childish. And what's the main example we've had apart from their playing with Macbeth? Back in Act 1, there was the sailor's wife. Yes. And what happened What was the revenge that the weird sisters inflicted upon?
Well, they cursed and killed her husband.
Well, they kept him awake at night.
I thought they drowned him.
What they couldn't do was sink the ship. They could only keep him awake. But it seems very, like not a very violent power over things. And then in Act 4, Scene 1, which we're going to read passages of very shortly, their whole power appears to be to make people think things, not to actually do things. In any case, at the end of that speech, she says, and you all know security is mortal's chiefest enemy. Now, I'd like to know what anyone thinks. Yeah, if she'd said insecurity, that would immediately make more sense to me. Like the Macbeth killing people, trying to secure his power. But she doesn't. She says security is mortal's chiefest enemy.
But she means false security, the fake one that Macbeth has because he believes the prophecies. Well, he will.
Right. So, and why does he have that false security?
Because he believes the witches.
Right. Because he thinks what they know.
And the witches' prophecy is very self-congratulatory.
Okay. Now, why would he believe them? I mean, just simplistically.
Because he's seen.
Yep.
Because he wants to.
That would help. Yes, I think that helps. And they say something true initially.
Yeah.
I mean, his friend has just told him people who want to destroy you will sometimes tell you something true initially, and then he immediately forgets that.
I think security can make you a bit complacent, and so you're not as watchful as you ought to be. You fall into accident or folly easily with security. It's a bit dull security. Can be.
Yep.
That sort of feeling, yeah. Monotony. And...
So if we take it as it's because he thinks that, well, I'm going to become king, so it doesn't matter what I do, then that would make security his worst enemy by making him act in a more avaricious and murderous manner than he otherwise might. Is that how we would say that?
Yeah, I think in this context, yeah.
Okay. Okay, now, before we depart Act 3, so that's Act 5, which a lot of the editors don't like, on metrical and thematic grounds, but I think the thematic grounds are good because it raises the problem of the relation between reason and, let's just say, prophecy. Because Hecate is accusing them of not being, she says, have I not reason? Right? So she's arguing with them about a rational ground. And what do you expect to get from someone who is merely selfish? That's a calculation about gain and loss. Right? That's not just random infliction of harm or something. It's odd.
It's about quid pro quo.
Exactly. So, but what quid can we expect to get from Macbeth if we're prophetic witches?
Yeah, and
Like
if
what?
he's really selfish, you can't expect any.
Yeah, but what can they expect from these humans who believe things that they tell them? I'm just curious.
Agents of chaos.
Sorry?
Agents of chaos.
Ages of chaos.
Agents.
Oh,
Like
agents.
Macbeth is. Yeah.
Macbeth is,
That's
yeah.
what they're hoping
Yeah.
for.
They want to sow chaos. Is that?
Yeah. Which
Why-
is, well,
But is there a reason for doing that?
because they're witches.
See, that would be a nice way to stop the questioning.
Yeah.
Tell me to shut up and go on to the next. But I'm just very curious because she says, why was I never called, this is line 8 or 9 in Act 3, Scene 5. Why was I never called to bear my part or show the glory of our art? That's, art, rational skill, not my fiendish contriving. Anyway, we might get slightly further, Act 4, Scene 1, where we have the a long development of her art with some more witches, 6 witches, in fact.
Ooh.
Yeah. The editors don't like them either, and they get them out of there as quick as they can and invent stage directions. But there are actually 6 witches for most of that scene. But so if we just very quickly, so Act 3 ends with scene 6, where you've got Lennox and another lord. Now, it's difficult to keep all the minor players together.
Yeah.
And Lennox and Ross are 2 minor players, but there's something key going on with them. Just it's worth reflecting just for a moment. And there's a schematic kind of connection, because at the end of Act 2, that ends with Ross talking to some old man. This ends with Lennox talking to some anonymous person. And there appear to be, and Act 2 and 3 begin with a short scene with Banquo. There appear to be these little parallels. But okay, so we have these not particularly important people. Ross is going to turn up again immediately in Act 4. And Lennox has this very sarcastic speech about what it's like to live with a tyrant. And if we just go towards the end, there's some, difficult language, which means we should read it. This is on page 115 of the folder, which is Act 3, Scene 6, line 28. So Malcolm's, they're talking about Macduff, who is in disgrace with Macbeth, and he's gone to visit Malcolm, as we'll see in Act 4, in England. So the son of Malcolm, at line 29, from whom this tyrant, Macbeth, holds the due of birth. Now, that's the due of birth is to be king, right? So when I mentioned before this difference between, for Aristotle, the tyrant and the legitimate ruler is the one who aims at the common good. But that has to be, and Aristotle concedes this everywhere, that has to be mediated by custom or law, so that there's a legitimate way of achieving power and an illegitimate way. So Aristotle has these 2 things in tension. Right? One, he thinks a kingdom or a regime is legitimate where someone comes to power according to the law of the regime. On the other hand, the ultimate legitimacy is whether or not it's just. Right? And it's that means that he's trying to give its due both to convention and to human nature. Right? And that means we have an unsolvable problem about deciding the legitimacy of regimes. Yeah? We can never have a perfect one, but the only criterion is what is best by nature. And this is why Hobbes says, everyone from Socrates down to Aquinas is an anarchist, because they set up this standard by nature that's outside of any actual regime, which means people can say, I refuse to obey the regime. So you're always going to have a gap between what's right and what's legal. Anyway, so that means that, from this traditional point of view, the tyrant breaks the law and the law is that you inherit. Well, at least that's what this lord is claiming. Obviously in Scotland they haven't settled on that because they voted in Macbeth, and they would have voted in whoever succeeded Duncan if Duncan didn't say, I give it to Malcolm. So he's trying to ward that off. People, I assume, okay, so is it Charles III now? We're up to 3, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, he was, how they say, that you have an investiture, which means put on vestments, put on clothing. Similarly, like, as talking about power in this, not power, but position in this text. But he's legitimate. But you could clearly go back into the line and say, well, 340 years ago, there was a small break in this line, or, the Glorious Revolution of 1685, broke the previous, Scottish inheritance or whatever. But that's the convention. Right? And which has a genuine political impact. So we have these two criteria. Okay, so anyway, Malcolm, lives in the English court and is received with the most pious Edward, with such grace that the malevolence of fortune nothing takes from his high respect. So the fact that he's been deposed before he inherited hasn't interfered with him being entertained. Thither, Macduff is gone to pray the holy king. So the emphasis is upon the English king being both in power and pious, holy, in the way that Duncan was, but presumably not weak the way Duncan was. Okay, so the question is, can you have a synthesis of the warrior, like Macbeth, and the graceful human being like Duncan? And the play seems to present Edward as that synthesis. Okay, so he's gone, thither Macduff is gone to pray the holy king upon his aid, to wake Northumberland and warlike Seward. Now apparently these are, they're not thanes, but they're local, leaders of some power nearer northern England or southern Scotland. I forget the exact, but at least they're under the impress of the English king. That by the help of these, with him above to ratify the work, we may again give to our tables meat, sleep to our nights, free from our feasts and banquets, bloody knives, do faithful homage and receive free honours, all which we pine for now. Now, so he concludes, and this report hath so exasperate the king, that is, King Edward, the English king, that he prepares for some attempt at war. Now, sent he to Macduff. Who's he?
King.
The king? King Edward?
King, yes, Edward.
Okay. Now, then the Lord says he did send to Macduff, and with an absolute "Sir, not I," the cloudy messenger turns me his back. Turns me is just, it's what's called an emotional ethic dative. You just, it doesn't mean he's turned his back on me, but in my eyes, he turned his back and hums, as who should say, you'll rue the time that clogs me with this answer. What's going on?
Actually, maybe it's Malcolm, because, and I'm just anticipating the discussion between Malcolm and Macduff in the next act.
Yeah, I don't know how to make immediate sense of this, so first of all, who's sending?
What was the name of the sign? Oh, sorry. This might be so great, but I'm just trying to remember. What was the name of the Thane of Fife? Who was the Thane of Fife?
Macduff.
Macduff, right.
Yeah.
Macduff's wife and
That's
children were
right.
killed.
Yes.
Right.
That's coming.
Yeah.
We'll get to their murder immediately.
So, is he saying did Macbeth send Macduff? Maybe they're interested in Macbeth's relationship with Macduff. I don't know.
Yes, that makes sense. So, I mean, that's why, Kirsten's answer that it's that King Edward is sending to Macduff. That just from the context, that makes sense. But if it's sent he, maybe you could emphasize it in such a way that it's Macbeth to Macduff, because Macduff didn't turn up to the investiture, the coronation of Macbeth. If we take it to be that for the moment, then if the Lord says he did, Macbeth did, and with absolute, that is, Macduff, you should attend on me, and with an absolute, Sir, not I, the cloudy messenger, the angry messenger, turns his back and harms as who should say. So the messenger is angry on Macbeth's behalf and hums as if he should say, you'll rue the time that clogs me with this answer. That is, you'll regret answering no to Macbeth. Is that a possibility?
Yes, it's a possibility.
It's not transparent. But
I didn't think of that. Oh, I've got it closer.
and then Lennox says, and that well might advise him. So now him is Macduff, to a caution, to hold what distance his wisdom can provide. That is, distance from Macbeth.
Isn't, just how I'm interpreting it, isn't Malcolm sending a message to Macduff to get him to England? Or, I don't know, that's how I read it.
Well,
But yes, that's definitely happening.
but
Whether
yeah,
that's what that refers to is the question. I mean, it seems to be that it's just an acknowledgement that this is an act of treason on Macduff's part by everybody, right? By these lords. And so everyone's kind of a bit sort of, oh, gee, that's a bit spicy. And there's going to be possible repercussions.
yeah, I think there might be, Macbeth sending to Macduff. Sorry, Will, did you?
Well, that was how I read it, but now, that's how I've read it before. Now I can't understand what I mean by "sir, not I." Who's addressing "sir, not I"? Saying no, sir, not I.
So if that's the response that the messenger gets, so if Macbeth sends to Macduff and says, you should attend on me, or come to me, or whatever, if Macduff responds to the message, no, I won't, then the messenger takes that, the cloudy, that is the angry messenger on behalf of Macbeth, says, well, you're going to regret giving me that answer.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, that's really deep, isn't it? All right, yes, I see that now, actually.
It's not easy because Lennox changes the subject of the conversation from the king to Macbeth. But you can see someone enacting. There could be a pause and say, sent he, i.e. someone else, not the person who we're talking about.
That's right.
Could be.
Intonation.
Lennox does seem to be the lord who is closest to Macbeth, whereas Ross is closest to Macduff.
Ross? Okay.
Well, Ross is the cousin of the wife.
That's true. Yes. Okay, let's go to Act 4 because I think that's going to be controversial. But if we start at Scene 1 in Act 4, we're back with the witches. Now, we don't have to describe every single animal and toad they put in the cauldron, but okay. So what's curious? I mean, I just have a couple of possibly not very helpful observations, but please bring up anything you want about this little excursion into cooking, which, from line 1 down to Hecat's entering at line 38. There's about 20 different things: snakes, worms, newts. Now, a lot of them are offensive to human beings. Like apparently toads do actually exude some kind of poison. Right, so,
Fruit of hemlock.
Sorry?
Fruit of hemlock.
And hemlock's poisonous. Snakes are poisonous. Bats, if you've had some, what do you call it? Gain of function research, they can be, they can affect. But that's only NIH. What is it? NHS, NIH, CDC, bats. Not all bats. Wuhan bats. But some of them are completely harmless, like lizard. So some of them are by nature harmful for human beings, and some of them are, I don't know, they seem to me neutral, like a dog. Dogs are, aren't dogs famously friend of human beings? And then we get down to things that are merely, well, either by convention or divine law, Jew, Turk, Tartar. That's not by nature, right? And a babe, like a newly born child. So then you have things that are not by nature, either friendly, harmful, or anything in particular.
A strangled babe.
Yes.
It's an angry babe.
Yeah. The learned notes pointed out to me that we have 4 examples of human beings who aren't baptized. Because the babe is strangled before it can be, and the other 3 have a different religion.
So the witch is a Christian, perhaps?
Well, this is really odd, because you see suggestions that they're terrible satanic things. Then why do they have this inclination towards
blasphemy?
Yeah.
Because holy things terrify them. They can't go near them.
But they're acting as if this is the list of unholy things, like poisonous snakes and unbaptized child and Turks and Tartars and...
Yeah, it would imply that they do have some kind of moral end, or that they're maybe even remotely Christian in their morality or something. Which
is
possible, I guess. Who knows?
But it just seems odd, and everything else they're doing doesn't seem particularly conventional for, Are they Christian witches? I don't know.
But you only get witchcraft if you've got Christianity. It's the opposite. Christianity is the underlying thing which the witchcraft is rebelling against, or it only exists.
But and maintains
Contrast.
maintains or perverts some of its standards to its own. Yeah.
Although, they've got Hecate, isn't it?
Sorry.
Well, you've got Hecate, who's a pagan god, so, although maybe adopted.
No, that's right. Hecate is a pagan god. Yeah.
I think the witches are bound to be interested in religious things and births and deaths and so on, because they're all spooky and totem and taboo level type.
Yeah.
Aren't they? I mean, the idea of a birth strangled babe is really just holds you for I don't know how long, but and then it leaves a reverberation that's spooky. The witches would love to play on it if they could. I should think, if I were a witch, like these witches here, played on Macbeth.
Yes.
And on Banquo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Macbeth's really powered up, isn't he, about poor Banquo?
Yeah.
Banquo's son, Fleance, Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's just very striking, though, that they're in some kind of perverted agreement
The witches.
with Christianity.
Oh.
Or they're a perversion of it, which might be your point, that it's a reaction. But it's curious. So we have this whole variety of natural and conventional things, harmless, innocent, neutral, all mixed together, right? Then Hecate arrives at line 39, and then she says, "Oh, well done, I commend your pains and everyone shall share in the gains." So that's back to her saying you're trading and trafficking and you're going to get gains for your pains. You're in a rational enterprise of some kind and you've made a mistake because you counted on Macbeth, whereas what you have to count on is that everyone's out for themselves. Isn't that curious? I still don't know what the gains are. I mean, the pains are, having to go out and find a birth strangled babe and a baboon and so on. That's obviously a complicated enterprise. Yeah, you can't just go to the IGA, bring your own box and carry the...
But, cool it with other things, displayed. How would the baboon display be cool anyway? How does that work? Cool with the baboon display?
Let's find a particularly insouciant baboon. And yeah, no, that's, yeah, it's,
We might find a book on witchcraft.
that's right. We've got to read King James's book on demonology, which I haven't read. No, I've heard rumours of it in the footnotes.
Is that King James of the Bible, is it?
No, yes. Well, he instituted the committee that wrote that Bible. Yes,
Right.
and in a epoch when a committee could really write well. Now, okay, so the second witch at line 44 says, "By the pricking of my thumb, something wicked this way comes." And none of us are surprised to see Macbeth. Now, Macbeth says at line 49, "How now, you secret black and midnight hags, what is it you do?" And they all respond, "A deed without a name." Is there a deed without a name? Or what does that mean?
It's very cool.
You're going to name your next band
Yeah, that's
A
exactly
deed
what I
without
was
a-
thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Love that has no name.
If you, for conventional reasons, sometimes you can't name things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if it's not by convention, then it means, I assume, if you can't name it, you can't pick it out and comprehend it, so it means something unintelligible. I don't know.
Comprehensible.
Yeah. But can there be a deed without a name? Is there an unintelligible deed?
Something so terrifying that we can't even put dimensions around it.
What plays that role in human life? Is there
Something taboo or something?
Yeah,
yeah,
nightmares.
yeah. No, yeah, like Margaret said before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
the love that dare not name.
Yes.
But so there are some things that by
They're not speakers,
convention.
They're not speakers. No.
But that's one thing. That's by convention we don't name it. But what about something that we can't name? I mean, in its impact on human affairs, I mean, the thing that seems to be unintelligible, well, not intelligible, not under our control, is chance. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a secret phrase. It's meant to be parallel to chance, but that's the only thing that occurs to me, that something that you can't control and can't even name as a force is chance. And if you can come along later and explain it, then it's no longer chance. Oh, it's because of this happened, that happened. I don't know. The weird sisters with their evocations of the future seem to take away, well, they give Macbeth the notion that things are secure and that he's not open to chance, which perhaps is what helps set on his rashness. That's just a thought. I mean, I'm open to suggestions.
Which is exactly what Banquo said that they were doing in Act 1.
What does he say?
Giving
Enough truth to hang himself.
Yes.
Yes.
To
Yes.
set on his rashness.
Yeah. Okay, so he happens to be in a particularly cranky mood. If you look at his speech from line 51, "I conjure you by that which you profess, howe'er you come to know it, answer me." Now, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 those, because he's saying, so though beginning a concessive phrase, although this happened, then go down to line 64, answer me to what I ask you. And the although this happened is basically that the world be destroyed. So, though you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, though the yeasty waves confound and swallow navigation up, though the bladed corn be lodged, which means blown flat, and trees blown down, though castles topples, though palaces and pyramids do fall down, though nature's germans, that is seeds, the seeds that allow nature to emerge and grow at all tumble all together, even till destruction sickens. So everything is destroyed, and even destruction is destroyed. So that's radical. I don't care. It just it reminds me, in a much more exaggerated form, of what the two murderers that he spoke to when he set them on to kill Banquo in Act 3. If I can just quickly get it, yeah, he's this. I'll just give you the reference, but don't go there. I'll just, in Act 3, Scene 1, line 121, second murderer says, "I am one, my liege, whom the vile blows and buffets of the world have so incensed that I am reckless what I do to spite the world. That is, I'll act after my own ends now, even if the world, regardless of the world." I don't know. But that's, like a radical version of that. But it also doesn't make sense, because you let the world be destroyed, just tell me the answer. But presumably you want the answer so you can act in the world. It's very extreme.
But this is Macbeth meeting the witches at their chaos, like meeting chaos with chaos and saying, "I'll double down on your chaos." Just, so that he has influence over them, so that they'll tell him.
Okay, so you just take it to be more rhetorical, to like...
No, not more rhetorical, but I mean, it's definitely, Macbeth has this power to meet people at, in their worst, in their most crazy and horrific, and, this whole idea that, the Macbeths, both of them, there's two kinds of people in this world. There's, nasty people and really nasty people, and, and you've got to, it's the fight tooth and claw, it's power over power, and that's legitimate because there is nothing really except for a fragile, conventional setup, which falls apart in the banquet scene. That really is the alternative to that.
How so? Because he's in society and depends on other people, and no? Really? No, I'm not sure what you mean. And could you use that stick with the thing on the end?
Oh, jeez. All right. So there's this line which Lady Macbeth says when, and this is going a bit too far ahead, where she's
which act are we in?
Act 5.
Act 5.
Yeah.
Okay, can we just refer to it? We're going to get there, but
all right.
Yeah.
Well, she's sleepwalking and says that she
Act 5, scene.
Actually, it's scene 1 and around line 35 to 40, where she says, oh, sorry, that's in the Arden. Who knows? No, she's sleepwalking, and she says, "Fie, my lord, fie, a soldier and afeard. What need we fear? Who knows it when none can call our power to account?"
Sorry, we're in Act 5, scene 1?
Act 5, scene 1.
Yeah.
Around line 37.
Yes, I see it, thanks. Line 37.
What need we fear?
What need we fear? Who knows it? Yep.
When none can call our power to account.
Yes.
And that's that's her maddening moment, that there is nothing in society which holds her to account. And it's just, Macbeth and her and this chasm of chaos. And then just, and he keeps meeting the chaos and forcing further and further into it.
That's curious. The next line is yet. So I take her to be saying by yet I endorse my former account that power is what matters and that when we have the power, no one can call us to account. Yet, who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? So what's affected her and what causes the sleeplessness is that she's somehow affected in her conscience by...
Yeah.
But that's not the other people. Oh, maybe that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying in that first sentence, which she appears to be endorsing, that there's no one can call her to account, but her conscience, which is bothered by the murder, reflects on the falseness of that she wants to be amongst people who have standards and can call her to account. Is that what you're suggesting?
She wants to be amongst people, yes. And then when that falls apart, so does the security of her idea that no one can call them to account because she finds that she has a conscience.
Okay.
And in this scene that we're talking about immediately now with the witches, Macbeth is kind of hurling up as what he can imagine the worst things that are going to happen on earth if they speak these deeds without names. He's throwing up. He's saying, even if castles topple or even if you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, blaspheme, he's really trying, he's sort of, or maybe trying to identify the witches' spooks, but at least to join in the witches' spooks and then have them engage with him more fully and actually tell him the deeds without names perhaps that he wants to know because he's terrified of Banquo and the seed that's going to put him out.
Yeah, well, Banquo is now dead, right?
Oh, sorry, I mean
Fleance.
Fleance.
Yeah.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Banquo's seed, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's desperate to find out what's...
Absolutely, what's happened to Banquo and how he looking at every possibility and being rid of that possibility.
Yeah. Okay, just to... Oh, yeah. Hey, Karen, how you doing?
Comrade, you need a chair.
Can you grab this
Oh, yeah.
chair?
Yeah, that's right, all there. So at line 71, the witch has gone from these, sorry, just stop it all. Neutral, negative, and good things that they're doing two unambiguously bad things, well, from a certain perspective. The sow that's eaten her 9 farrow children. What do you call children of pigs? Piglets. Yeah, that's right. And grease that's been sweated off by a murderer. Right. So those are less ambiguous than all the examples before. And then they introduce these 3 apparitions, which are meant to be, on the one hand, completely ambiguous. So the first apparition is an armed head, and you'll get scholarly arguments about whose armed head is it. And it does remind you that the first armed head we see but we're told of, is the original Thane of Cawdor's head who gets stuck on a... and there's speculation, well, maybe it's the armed head of Macduff who'll kill him, or the armed head of Macbeth who warns him, and so on. But and that armed head says, "Beware Macduff." Second apparition, bloody child. Now, those of us who've seen the ending maybe will think assume that's Macduff. But the warning is at line 90. Laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. So this is the first of the 2 statements that give him security, and this is what some of you were suggesting before. Macbeth is given security by the prophecies. Now Macbeth's immediate response, and this is curious. At line 93, he says, so he's been warned about Macduff, and he's been told that no one of woman born can kill him. So he says, "Then live, Macduff, what need I fear of thee?" but yet I'll assurance double sure, I'll make assurance double sure and take a bond of fate. So he thinks he's fated not to be killed by Macduff, because no human being can kill him. But then he says, I'll take a bond, that is an extra contract, a double contract of fate. So his attitude is not straightforward.
No.
And if we have ambiguous, if we just call them witches giving prophecies, it shows in a little picture the larger picture of being dependent upon prophecies, as we'll see in the next scene. If you're like, and they have prophecies about things good, bad, evil. But if you have a prophecy about what's right, we get to that in the next scene. Okay, third apparition. That's a child crowned with a tree in its hand. And the third apparition tells him, this is line 103 in the Folga. Be lion-mettled proud and take no care who chase, who frets, or where conspirers are. Macbeth shall never vanquished be until great Burnham Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him. Now, I'm surprised at the answer that Macbeth gives at line 108 to 110. That will never be. Who can impress the forest, bid the tree unfix his root? Now, so he appears to be very sure there are natural standards for things. Things have a nature that's irrevocable. So he doesn't appear to think that the witches in any way offer some kind of ability to do things. And that's why I brought out, what's very odd is, we mentioned the example, what's the main example of them dealing with anyone else before this is the sailor's wife, and they kept the sailor awake for 81 nights or something. But they couldn't overturn his ship. And that's why when the witch says that at that time in Act 1, she says, I'll do and I'll do and I'll do, which is echoed by Macbeth when he talks about this deed in the same sentence. But they don't do anything. What they do is make people think things are being said or done.
They're too busy gathering things for their potions. I mean, the sweat
Okay, so what
the
they
sweat
do
of a
do-
murderous gibbet, that's
Yeah.
a hard one to get.
Yeah, you've got to, you've got to get the syringe and take the blood from the baboon, and it's a complicated.
No, it's from the gibbet. The gibbet's the hanging instrument, isn't it?
Yeah.
You
They went over and wiped the sweat, and
Oh.
they didn't get the gibbet. That's
Right. But I've never actually ever noticed that you've got this crown child with a tree in his hand. Macbeth better wake up. I mean, it says tree. When my mind thought it was just a branch,
Yeah.
But it says tree, yeah.
Yeah.
a little tree, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he cuts to the chase. At line 137. Oh, sorry, this is skipped ahead accidentally because I can't control the computer. At line 115, he says, "Tell me, if your art can tell so much, shall Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom?" Which is his main point of doubt. And they pretend not to want to tell him, seek to know no more. And I'm assuming that they're just trying to pique his interest. I don't know. What's your impression?
No, they're generally concerned about him.
And he says, "Deny me this and an eternal curse fall on you." So now that they've added in this footnote, cauldron sinks. So whether or not the cauldron sinks, there are this musical instrument, rather apparently like an oboe. But he does say, why sinks the cauldron? So the scene changes, musical background, And then we have this, the stage direction is a show of 8 kings and Banquo last with a glass in his hand. And the editors in our text have said the 8th king with a glass in his hand and Banquo last. And yeah, this is one of those things where I have no idea what the editors think they're doing. Because I think this is what's happening. I'll just say what I think is happening. I'll read a couple of lines and then just tell me what you think. So Macbeth says, "Thou art too like the spirit of Banquo." So Banquo is the last of these 8 people, 8 kings. "Thy crown does sear mine eyeballs, and thy hair, thou other gold-bound brow, is like the first." Now, I think what is happening, we have the 8 kings of Scotland down to the next king, which is Banquo. And then he holds up a mirror, and the mirror reflects the other 7, but in the mirror they look like Banquo, and that's the future, because the future is like an image of the past, but it's not yet real. That's just my immediate thought on what on the stage direction and what he says. But I read the Arden footnote, and it described it very differently. So if anyone has any thoughts. So I think what he's saying, he says at line 128, "And thy hair, thou other gold-bound brow, is like the first, like Banquo. A third is like the former." Then he exclaims, "Filthy hags, why do you show me this?" A fourth, "Start, eyes, what will the line stretch out to the crack of doom?" And another yet, a 7th, "I'll see no more." And yet the 8th appears, who bears a glass. And so in the mirror, an 8th king who also has a glass. And that shows another, long array of kings. Yeah.
Is that because Banquo's descendants are supposedly to inherit the throne, perhaps?
Yeah. I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, okay. So
I feel like I read in the editorial somewhere that James the First, the Sixth, or whatever, thought he was descended from Banquo.
Yeah, someone who clearly wanted to get a position as Chancellor of the Exchequer or something wrote a book saying that. Yeah, apparently I read that too somewhere in an introduction. That someone had made that argument.
No, I think the king in Shakespeare's time.
Yeah, no, James the First.
Yeah,
who came to the throne 2 years before this play was produced.
Right.
Yeah, apparently someone around the time had made the argument that he's descended from Fleance.
Macbeth is quite uninhibited, isn't he? I mean, he changed his mind and threatens them with a curse just previously, and now in this part he's gone, "Filthy hags, why do you show me?" He's abusing them for showing him when he's been pleading.
When he's just said, "Show me."
Yeah.
Why do you show me? You just demanded that you'll destroy the world, or
He's a bad guy.
Okay. We're trying
He's
to.
over the shop, isn't he? But is he mad? I mean, was he mad in the first place? No, he's just going mad.
I don't really see any signs of madness.
No.
His wife says, you're ambitious, but you lack the illness that should go with the ambition.
Yeah.
And that, he becomes more and more deranged and tyrannical.
Yeah.
But he doesn't lose, I don't think he loses touch with.
Well, he sees Banquo's ghost.
Yes, that's true. And a dagger. Yes.
Did you see a dagger?
Yeah. So is that madness?
To my mind,
It's deluded. Clearly,
I'd go into it.
No, I see daggers all the
If I knew I
time.
had sent someone to murder Banquo and there's Banquo sitting, I'd go and see a psychiatrist.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Wise.
Or I go overseas, you know, I get lost. I wouldn't be staying around.
Yeah. Just got to find a beach for a while.
But I don't understand, what are you saying, there's a difference between the Arden and the Older on this, or is,
The who? Sorry?
or is it different interpretations of what was actually, what we're seeing on stage? Is it,
Okay, so the footnote, the stage direction, which is at line 127 roughly, is a show of 8 kings
yeah,
and Banquo last.
yeah,
So the original stage direction says eight kings parade,
yeah,
Banquo's last
Yeah.
with a glass in his hand. So he's not a king, right? But then he holds the glass up and that reflects 8 kings that come from him that look like him.
so that's, yeah, okay, so
And what's,
in the text,
it
it's
says?
the 8th one, and the 8th king
yes.
is bearing the glass.
And then the
But
eighth,
Banquo's there as well.
yeah, there's 8 kings and Banquo last,
And
yes.
Banquo's just pointing at them.
And he's got a mirror that shows them, but in the mirror, they look like him.
Well,
And so that's the past, that the quote, actual kings in the apparitional kings, as opposed to the mirror of an apparition, which is a good metaphor for the future. The mirrored image of the apparitions look like Banquo. So that's the past, they're the future. That makes sense, I think. But the text all changed that. Anson, did you have a
You
suggestion?
mean like a mirror show?
No, I've got a additional point to the suggestions that you're making, but please go on, and if you have any, like you want to finish your thoughts.
No, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this. It seems like Banquo was supposed to be king in this sequence anyways, right? Or otherwise, why would he be in this line of kings? Then I think about Hecate from Act 3, Scene 5, I reckon, where they were scolding the witches for doing weird things with Macbeth and trafficking with them, talking to them. And it seems to me that could be a connection where, for example, like Hecate and the three witches should not spur Macbeth on so quickly that Macbeth would have killed Banquo before this discussion. If that makes sense. Because if it would be the case that in this act we see that Banquo was supposed to be king, and then we see previously that Banquo was killed when he's supposed to be king, then that means that Banquo should not have been killed. And therefore, why Hecate was so angry is because Banquo should not have been killed by Macbeth. And since the witches spurs Macbeth on, that makes him so angry or anxious that he has to kill Banquo and Fleance. That therefore leads to this mistake of having Banquo killed too early, basically, if he has to be killed at all. That is just a suggestion of why we're sort of just having this sort of dangling thought about what is Hecate doing with that act with the witches and so on. Yeah.
So therefore, Hecate is moderating their setting Macbeth on.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hadn't seen that before. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It also gives some rationale for the way that the witches are pushing Macbeth on, you know. Burnham Wood comes to Dunsinane and so on. It all sounds so ridiculous, but they've got a hold on him because Hecate is absolutely furious that fate has been thwarted by the killing of Banquo. Yeah,
Fate has been thwarted, but I don't think Banquo was never promised to be king. He was only ever promised that his issue would be king, right? Yeah.
Or another way of looking at this is that see what the witches are doing, in my opinion, is to secure Macbeth to say that you're not going to be killed, you're going to be fine, you're going to be king for however long that you want to be, and so on and so forth. These are type of security.
Yes.
That when he kills Banquo, is the opposite of that. When he kills Banquo, it is out of urgency, it's out of fear that Leon's is going to take his throne for, I don't know, like in God knows how many short period of time that he's going to have. So I feel like there's sort of this shifts of what the witch is trying to do to Macbeth in this case, and in this case providing this security, which is the opposite of, or which is the lack thereof that causes Macbeth to kill Banquo in the first place. I don't know. It's just an idea. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what
No,
everyone
because
thinks.
I think you're touching on both sides of what he does, which is on the one hand, he does act as if he can act in the security of him becoming king, but then he acts with extreme rashness because of the insecurity about Banquo. So you're touching on, I think, for me, this is a real question. I don't know the answer. What I'm bothered by, though, is that both seem to operate at once, both when the witches first speak and now, because they're saying you have total security, no man of woman born will kill you, and until that forest comes and plants itself beside your castle, you can't be defeated. So that's the security, but on the other hand, they enhance the insecurity that you discuss about Banquo by having him appear in this apparition, showing that his kingdom, comes to nothing with him. So we got both the security and the insecurity in both scenarios. What do you think?
I don't know.
I hadn't thought that Macbeth's kingship was in the mirrors there. It is.
Macbeth.
Yeah.
How is
Yeah, exactly.
how do you mean? Sorry.
Well, has Macbeth been instated?
Yeah, no, he's been
Yeah.
invested. Yes.
Invested. Yeah, invested.
So shouldn't he be the king before Banquo's holds the mirror up and then
there's in the mirrors?
yeah.
Shouldn't he be included? I hadn't thought. Yeah,
That would make sense.
Yeah, good. Okay.
In the Arden, they confidently say something like the 8 kings are the previous 8 kings up to Macbeth.
Right.
But logically speaking, why not Macbeth? Because he's the latest.
He's not legitimate. He usurped the throne.
Right.
Yeah.
He committed murder,
Right.
treason.
So the apparition tells us of all the actual kings who were legitimate. And then Banquo's line down to James I. It's actually 5:10. What we have to do is read a few lines from the next scene for various reasons, and then we're going to watch the third scene and have a break. But now from this scene, there's a couple of lines we have to very quickly look at since we've spent some time on other things. At line 160, Lennox. So we're still Act 4, Scene 1. Lennox says, the horses that you heard were people bringing word that Macduff has fled to England. Macbeth says, fled to England. Lennox agrees, confirms. Macbeth says, again, one of our 8,000 reflections about time in this play. Time, thou anticipatest my dread exploits. So, time unfolds before he can do his worst. The flighty purpose never is overtook unless the deed go with it. So a purpose obviously is a thought, so we can have whatever speed, right? It's not overtaken unless the deed go with it. Can a purpose be overtaken by the deed? Or can the deed at most keep track with the purpose? I'm not sure what this line is meant to say exactly. It does seem to be a very strange echo of the earlier passages where Macbeth is trying to say, my hand not see the deed, but approve the deed when it's done. But now he wants the deed to go with the purpose so that it can't be interfered with. But it's a very strange general statement. And then the practical conclusion he draws from it, from this moment, the very first things of my heart shall be the first things of my hand. So because deeds can't keep up with purpose, I will always act on my first instinct to try and keep the deed as close to the purpose so that it can't be interfered with by chance or fate or accident. Right? And so therefore, my first thought is, seize Macduff's castle and kill his wife and children. So go do that before I have a chance to reflect. So he's trying to eliminate any gap between instinct or resolution and reflection, which is almost bringing you close to a deed that you don't think on, or a deed that has no name, that is not intelligible, because you're just acting, you're not thinking. Right? I find that intriguing, and I don't really know what to make of it. But,
is he a bit confused here between what he's seen in the vision? Is he got to be afraid of Banquo, or is he got to be afraid of Macduff? Is it whose children? Which is the line of kings? Where do they come from?
well, that's it. Yeah, that is interesting, because presumably from the apparition, he's scared of Banquo's line. Here, the context is just Macduff's done this. Okay, kill his children, and why?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but I don't think he has to be afraid of him. It's just his instinct, vengeful instinct.
But Macduff is not of a woman born.
Well, we don't.
He doesn't
Yeah,
know that yet.
yeah. We
don't
learned
know.
that in Act 5. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But
Okay.
is that hanging in the air?
Yeah.
But does Macbeth know it?
No one knows that yet.
Ah.
Yeah. They're not well read like us. Okay. Act 4, Scene 2. Lady Macduff. Now, Lady Macduff is with Ross. What the hell is Ross doing?
Oh, he's the cousin. Oh, the.
Yeah. That's
but
the.
he's
So
also-
Lady Macduff says, "Okay, what made my husband escape?" Ross says, "You must have patience." And Lady Macduff quite correctly says, "He had none. His flight was madness. Okay, not rational. When our actions do not, our fears do make us traitors." Right. So we're not traitors indeed, but just by being afraid, we can do things that make us traitors. Right. So beforehand, he hasn't done anything traitorous, so therefore he should be secure. Not if you have a tyrant as a king, of course. Problem. But Ross says, "You know not whether it was his wisdom or his fear." Lady Macduff, wisdom, to leave his wife, to leave his babes, his mansion and his titles in a place from whence himself does fly. That makes sense. So then she gives a natural example, right? A small bird that fights for the family against a larger bird, right? So, but that's a natural love of one's own, and therefore of the family, right? So she is saying, and she ends this little speech by saying, "As little is the wisdom where the flight so runs against all reason." So she's arguing here on the basis of nature and reason, and she's about to change her ground shortly, right? So Ross says, "My dearest cuz," and I think Kirsten's persuaded by this flattering language, because he ends at line 29 to 30, "My pretty cousin, blessing upon you." Now,
Oh, he's definitely a creep.
yeah. So what is he doing in the castle? So he's there 5 minutes before the murderers come in and murder wife and child. Right?
Yeah.
2 minutes before they come in, a messenger comes to warn her. So if we just skip the page, Ross pretends that he's about to cry and leaves. Right? Now, why is he there? I mean, I suspect he's there to open the door or something, because he's not. He, I assume, knows what's going to happen. And then the messenger comes in at line 71 and says, "Yeah, I'm not known to you, but I know you're in danger. Get your child and run." Before we get there, though, there's an anti-Hobbesian political theory discussion between Lady Macduff and her child, which we need to read. Okay, so now at line 35, she says, "Sirrah, your father's dead. What will you do now? How will you live?" And the son says, "As birds do, mother. What with worms and flies?" And he says, "With what I get, I mean, and so do they." And she says, "Poor bird, thou'dst never fear the net nor lime, the pitfall nor the gin." So if you're a bird, aren't you vulnerable by yourself to people, human beings, contriving against you? And the parallel being, in the real world, aren't you as a child vulnerable to people who can harm you? And he says, "Why should I, mother? Poor birds they are not set for. Poor birds are not set for." So small birds, people set traps for birds they can eat and so on, right? Now that's untrue. Like, he's going to be proved false immediately because they are the poor wife and innocent poor wife and child, and they're immediately murdered. So they are set traps for. So that's his error. She's about to make it, not an error, but okay. So then, anyway, he says, "My father is not dead, for all you're saying." So I'm having trouble controlling this PDF. And Lady Macduff says at line 45, "Yes, he is. How wilt thou do for a father?" And he says, "How wilt thou do for a husband?" She says, "Why, I can buy me 20 at any market." And he says, "Then you'll buy them to sell again." What's the meaning?
So if it's that cheap, then it's just an exchange. Like, it's not. You're cheapening your husband by saying you can buy them at the market.
Right. So like, back to the...
He doesn't believe he's dead anyway. If he's saying he's not dead, you'll have to sell him.
Yeah, no, he's technically correct. Yeah, but so there's something different in kind between transaction and the groupings that human beings make, like family, city, country. There's something, those aren't simply transactions, yes? Mm-hmm. He's pointing to that. Right? Now, she says, "Thou speakest with all thy wit, and yet in faith, with wit enough for thee." He says, "Was my father a traitor, mother?" And she says, "Yeah, he was." What is a traitor? She says at line 54, "Why, one that swears and lies." Now, she's clearly saying that you can swear loyalty to a king and a country and lie, or to a wife and abandon her. Yeah. Right? So she's obviously evoking both contexts. Yeah. And the son says, "Is that all traitors?" And Lady Macduff, "Everyone that does so is a traitor and must be hanged." And the boy seeks confirmation, and then over the page in our text at line 59, she says, "Everyone." And the son says, "Well, who's going to hang them?" And she says, "The honest men." And the son says, "Then the liars and swearers are fools, for there are liars and swearers enough to beat the honest men and hang them up." Right, which is very clever. She says, "Now God help thee, poor monkey." Right. Now he's saying, okay, if everyone lies and swears, well, if the majority lie and swear, then they can just gang up together on the people, the so-called honest people, and hang them up. Now, what's wrong with that thought, or what's right with that thought?
Well, yeah, it's the rule of the strongest, which is absolutely right. It's very Macbethian.
Right. Is there a problem with it?
With
this,
liars, hanging all the honest people? No, of course not. No, what do you mean?
I just, if you're going to get together to hang up the honest people, you have to have an agreement that you all stick to. Yeah. You have to swear and keep your promise, otherwise it's not going to work.
But the child is simply saying that the agreement is based just on the numbers. Like, as soon as you realise that it's them against you, there doesn't have to be any formal arrangement.
Oh no, there does. I mean, I don't think it doesn't need to be paperwork, but there needs to be some degree of trust to do that.
Or amongst these or whatever, yeah. But I think the child's cynical, as you're saying. There's a lot more people around here lying than being true.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah.
Including perhaps my father, but he doesn't believe it yet.
No.
But that is the Macbeth point of view, worldview, right? Out of the mouth of a babe. I guess.
And the witches.
Yeah.
Well, Hecate, he tells them everyone loves themselves alone, right?
Yeah.
And if everyone loves themselves alone, then the only reason they would get together is to get the people off their backs who want to punish them for doing the wrong thing.
Mm.
But then how do you make a society or a gang of robbers who don't swear and who you can't trust to share the loot after? I just can't help not thinking of Thrasymachus being argued into the ground by Socrates in Book 1 of the Republic. But
yeah, or the Macbeths. Like, what do they do? What do they do now that they're in control and they have, they still have all the power, but they can't hold it together?
okay, we'll finish with his beautiful last word, which is, I know that because they're playing with each other. Now, God help thee, poor monkey, i.e. that's a human, all too human, Hobbesian depiction of human society. Anyway, the son says, if he were dead, you'd weep for him. If you weren't weeping for him, even though he was dead, it would be a sign that I've got a new father.
Good sign,
Yeah, that's pretty good for an 11-year-old. Unfortunately, his reward is immediate death. So that's very sad. Now, yeah,
It's funny perspective because I think that they're trying to work out in their mind, how to make sense of what Macduff's just done.
Yeah.
But they also don't have the perspective of the play or where you can see that sort of what Macduff has done is just the tip of the iceberg or something like that. And obviously she's giving a definition of a traitor that he's just picking holes through as well, which is kind of comedic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very comic. The underlying thing at line 81, when she's just been told she has to escape, she says, whither should I fly? I have done no harm. Now, before she was appealing to reason and nature. Now she says, but I remember now I am in this earthly world where to do harm is often laudable, to do good sometimes accounted dangerous folly. Why then, alas, do I put up that womanly defence to say I have done no harm? And then she's murdered. Okay, so now Macduff, in the scene that we're about to see, relies upon the notion that there is justice, a cosmic justice, and there may be a God that enforces that justice. She is not, and that's why she doesn't want to be left alone so that random murderers can kill them, which turns out to be her fate. Now, the next scene, actually, it's one of the longer ones that we were going to watch, but I'll put the time of the production that we've been looking at in the chat, and let me just quickly stop sharing this and share something else.
Oh, there's a funny thing that sort of continues on there in the murderers enter.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it's just sort of a continuation here. One of them says he's a traitor, and the son in the heat of the ambush says they're liars.
Yeah, no, he doesn't truly believe it, but so the discussion's been very playful and okay, so it's from 1 hour, 44 minutes and 6 seconds into that Royal Shakespeare Company production that we've been watching with Gandalf and whatever. So if that's going to take, it's going to take 15 minutes at least. So if we come back at 5:45, that won't leave much time after, but back at 5:45. Okay, so we've here only seen the first part of this scene, and what's happened?
We have a reluctant ruler.
You think?
Yeah.
You think he's reluctant?
Malcolm?
Hmm.
Yeah, isn't that his... Or either he is genuinely reluctant, or he's just trying to figure Macduff out and before he tells him the plan and secures him as his ally.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's it, because he says Macbeth has sent many people to trick him, and so he has two tests, and the first where he, where is it? The first where he accuses Macduff of being a traitor, and he gets cranky, and the second where he talks about his own character. Now, his own character is a picture of what a tyrant would be normally, yes? So lustful and avaricious, like that's the picture normally of a tyrant. Like, why do you take power? In order to take what doesn't belong to you because you desire it, and yes? But Macbeth doesn't seem to be like that. I mean, it's called avaricious, but why does Macbeth want to be king? And no matter how he gets there, why is he willing to wade through blood? It doesn't appear to be for either of these two goals. Right?
Glory, God, glory.
Glory?
Amour propre.
Yeah, I just raise it as a question because
No, but he's like, and he wants to get on with his wife, I think. And
he wants.
It is a love story.
It's a love story.
Yeah.
It's all about love.
There's also a sense in which he thinks it's already his, like it's his to have, it's his to take. Just requires the
On the basis of his superiority at fighting, or on the
on
basis of the
the
witches?
basis of the visions.
Yeah. Yeah.
basis of what?
Of the visions that the witches
Oh,
got.
yeah, I see, right, yeah.
And on his idea of, what it is to be a courageous man.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, I think after he proved so good at the battle in the first act, I think he's annoyed at the fact that Duncan says Malcolm will inherit rather than that we'll have the usual election. And I think that, you could make the argument that Duncan causes the tragedy in part by that decision. But okay, so this is an extraordinary kind of loyalty test, right?
Yeah.
Does Macduff want what's good for Scotland or not? And when he shows himself to be avaricious in two senses, then Macduff says, okay, that's, three senses. First, lust, money, and then third, unity. And he's going to just, be tyrannised over Scotland in all of those three ways. When he gets to the first two, Macduff says, we can accommodate these small problems. I don't know. I find that striking. Yeah. But then he gets to the third, which would make unity, make the whole kingdom impossible. Then he says, I despair of Scotland. And Malcolm says, okay, you've passed the test. I will teach you the secret handshake. Now, what happens next is Ross comes in. First of all, a doctor comes in, right, and talks about the miraculous non-surgical interventions made by the English king who can cure people of the king's disease. Now, this is again this underlying theme which grows more prominent in the fifth act, that the King of England is both possessed of power, and we don't really hear about what he is as a warrior, but he's definitely as gracious as Duncan was, and Christian, and has these supernatural powers.
Sweet.
Yeah. Okay. More of that in the fifth act, but then so the doctor comes in, and it's becoming very gradually and clear to me, and I don't understand this fully. So I just produce this thought, and we can discuss if you have any suggestions. But Hecate says, "You did not let me show the glories of my art." Now, art is what human beings used to conquer chance. This is an expression from Aristotle. It's not just Machiavelli, chapter 25 of The Prince. Aristotle talks about art conquers whatever happens next, whatever happens by chance, because you have a particular skill, you can adapt those skills to the particular circumstance. So art and reason mitigate against chance. They can't conquer it entirely. Okay, so the doctors represent art. There's a doctor here, and we'll have a doctor in Act 5 discussing the Macbeth's clinical case. Okay. So they represent art. Now, the doctor says that their malady convinces the great assay of art. Now, convinces, it's in its Latin etymology, it means defeats. Their disease defeats. This is at line 163 to 4 of Act 4, Scene 3. Their malady, the disease of these people, defeats the great attempt, the great endeavour of art, of rational science. But yet the king has the ability to save them. So we've got art and something beyond art, both on the side of the witches and in the political side. And we get a clearer view of this in Act 5. Now Ross comes in after the doctor, and there's this strange passage, and we just have a few more minutes left, so we'll just have a quick look at this, where Ross delays telling Macduff that his wife and child are dead.
Tells them they're fine.
He tells them, yeah, so let's go to that, which is line what?
203 or so.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. At line 204, he says, "How does my wife? Why, well, and all my children? Well, too. The tyrant has not battered at their peace. No, they were well at peace when I did leave them." So that's one of those witch-like, strictly correct. They were well at peace. And I saw a note in one of the editions that I looked at that referred to a note in the Furnace, this 19th century American edition, which is apparently 8,000 pages long and has every detail of what everyone ever thought. Someone has made the suggestion that Ross came back as one of the murderers. I know. I'd like to see a DNA sample that showed up, or there's some more evidence. But Ross is definitely not someone who we can trust. He was with the old man at the end of Act 2, and the old man said, it was a terrible night, and people said that the lightning struck the church and that the horses escaped. And Ross said, "Oh yeah, I saw them eat each other." Yeah, I don't know if he did. I think he's just... Anyway, I don't know if we can take Ross seriously when he... But then he's very reassuring to Macduff, not sure why. And then we get down to where? How long does he take? Oh yeah, so at line 237, he says, "Let not your ears despise my tongue forever, which shall possess them with the heaviest sound that ever yet they heard." And Macduff says, I can guess at it. "Your castle is surprised, your wife and babe savagely slaughtered. To relate the manner were on the quarry." Now, quarry can mean a pile of dead bodies. In Act 1, the ardent editors took out the word quarry when it could mean a pile of dead bodies and replaced it with quarrel. But since we have the same word being used in that sense, I don't think that's necessary. But here, here were on the quarry of these murdered deer, so these innocent dead, to add the death of you. But how does he know? How does he know how it happened?
Because he's in collusion.
Yeah, he left 5 minutes before it happened, and everyone seems to have open access to the Macduff Castle, which I don't think is the tourist venue it now is, where you can just wander in. Anyway, there's something odd. There's something odd.
But it does, going back to when the murderers entered, suggesting that, yeah, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe that's interesting. Yeah, it could be Ross, yeah.
There's something odd that he's there and he appears to be on the side of Macbeth. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so go to line 260. I'm being very, very scattered because we're running out of time. And this is when he's describing their murder. First of all, at line 255, he says, he has no children, he, Macbeth, so he can't appreciate. And then, yeah, so from there, line 260, unfortunately, this ridiculous PDF thing.
I thought you were talking about Malcolm when he says he has no children, because Malcolm's, you know, trying to be encouraging in a really weak way, sort of saying, buck up, man. And Macduff's just pointing out that he has no idea what he's talking about.
Actually, you bring up a very good passage because at line 260, like at line when Malcolm is saying, use your passion for revenge on the tyrant, right? And line 260, and he says at line 259, dispute it like a man. That brings us back to the man conversation between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth about. You know, the first thing Macbeth says, I would do anything a man would do. Anyone who does more is not a man. And he means there are limits to what you should do. Whereas Lady Macbeth says, well, what beast was it that opened up this plan to me? So now Malcolm says, dispute it like a man, that is, use your anger against the tyrant. And Macduff says, I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. So there's a proper recognition of the crime and feeling it rather than just vengeance. But then he says, I cannot but remember such things were that were most precious to me. Did heaven look on and would not take their part? Now, Lady Macduff is not this naive. She is saying, heaven's not going to take anyone's part. If you don't have a sword in your hand, you can get killed. Right? Sinful Macduff, they were all struck for thee. So he is acting as if not only, there's a God and a cosmic order, but that there's a direct link between the cosmic order and what happens on Earth, and that you can rely on that. Whereas what we saw in Act 1 was that justice has to go armed. Like that was the defeat of the rebels by Macbeth there was one line in which included his brave Macbeth and justice. Like he was valor and justice. You need the two together. And Macduff is acting here as if he can have them apart. And that, he's acting as if he's shocked that innocent weakness can be killed. Okay. It's actually 6:02. Apologies, we've just gone slightly over. Yeah. We only have one more week, so if you have any thoughts about the whole play, anything in the play as a whole, I'll produce a couple of passages that we can discuss and a couple of themes. But yeah, let me know of any lines, verses you'd like to read.
Work out the lineage between Malcolm and then Leon's.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Oh.
Yeah. How does that happen?
Anyway,
I'll see if we can find a chart. And yeah.
It's not actually in the chart at the back.
Right.
But there does seem to be something, some truth in Malcolm's speech about himself. That it does seem to be like a premonition that his reign will fall apart, and then maybe that's when.
But he would because at the end he said, "I'm the opposite of all those things. I've never thought any. This is the first time I've told a lie, unless that's another lie." But he seems to be saying I'm the opposite to those things. But we'll investigate next week, and of course, uncover all the final truths of what Shakespeare thinks.
Once and for all.
We'll see you next week.
Once and for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kim.